Hey, it's the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here. Glad you could join me on our weekly, well, sometimes twice a week, adventure into the uplands. All things gun dog, bird hunting, and shooting related. If it's got something to do with your favorite sport, then welcome to the fraternity. Yeah, should be a good one as well. I'm looking forward to this as much as the first time Jake Bartells and I met, which was somewhere in Oklahoma during a Club Épagneul Breton field trial. Jake was a great interview then, and it'll be a great interview today as well. Jake is not only an Épagneul Breton owner, breeder, trainer, he's got several NAVHDA Versatile Champions in his kennel. We'll be learning two things in particular, but a little bit about everything. So if you're interested in getting your dog more steady, or ensuring that he actually retrieves to your satisfaction, we're going to drill down on both of those with Jake Bartells today. But we've got other things as well. You're going to share with you your bucket list birds for this season, and believe me, I was surprised when I started reading about those, and you will be too. Might give you an idea or two. And then I'm going to go back, since I've got a couple of questions about it. One of the items that I've suggested you could make at home for dog training is a check cord. So we'll just touch on the materials and how to do that the right way that save you a buck or two and maybe give you a better check cord over the next few months or years of your young dog's training career. Yeah, and it's all made possible here at the Upland Nation by our sponsors, Sage and Breaker, Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays, TruLock Chokes, Midway USA, Purina Pro Plan Sport, LandTrust.com, ESPAmerica.com, and High Viz Shooting Systems. Well, speaking of check cords, one of the things I'm drilling down a little deeper on with Flick these days is that proverbial walking away bird. I've talked about it before, but I'm still experimenting. Yeah, we even went back up onto the training table yesterday. There are some instances when it's just too much for him. The poor guy, I've told you about my milk crate Covey Rise simulator. Did that, but unfortunately, he got in too close on the point. There was no wind. So he got into the point where he could see the milk crate, see the birds in the milk crate. And I did the dumbest thing I've done in quite a few days. I tipped it over and let the birds walk out. And they walked right out just according to plan, but they were 1.5 feet from Flick. 5 pigeons 1.5 feet from your dog. Yeah, well, at least you didn't catch any. And we've moved back literally and figuratively from that one, and we're still learning, but we're doing better. If you want to learn something on television, on the big screen, well, don't forget Wing Shooting USA is back on about 7 different platforms, including most smart TVs in the entire universe. This week, one of our contest winners from way back rejoins the hunting fraternity. We go to South Dakota, incredible place, the Warren Ranch. You'll love it just for the scenery, but there's also some fascinating and tricky shooting involved. So check it out. If you want more information, go to findbirdhuntingspots.com. Then click on the Wing Shooting USA tab. You'll find out where you might be able to watch it. All right, so I asked a while back on the social media, what is, for this season, maybe not for your entire life, but for this season, what is your bucket list bird? And are you going? And I ask it in part because my bucket list is not a bird species per se, but it is a destination, and maybe I'm, helping myself there as well. But you had some great answers, and like I said, maybe some of these ought to be on everybody else's short list as well. First on the list, Cork Green. Thanks for all your support, by the way. Cork is just glad to be out there this year, and I understand. We've all been there and done that. Isn't that a great feeling to have? Get in shape, my friend. Maybe I'll see you in the field. John Simon has prairie chickens on his agenda. Hope to go earlier in the season. Yeah, That's exactly right. That's when you're going to get a little closer. You know, I think I've told you this. Every prairie chicken I've ever shot, I thought was a sharp-tail when it got up. You know, I'm just a little colorblind, and that doesn't help. Luckily, the seasons are the same. David Klopp, sharp-tails or pheasants anywhere in the Midwest someday. You know, hey, man, there's no time like the present. All you got to do is look around your circle of friends, and you'll probably be able to find somebody who can't go anywhere anymore. So sooner than later, as the Nike slogan used to say, just do it. Ralph Klimak, along with a few other people, is going to try and get into spruce grouse. Yeah, be interested to know where you're going on that. I got a good friend who's going to, of all places, Montana for that. But there are all sorts of places you can find. In fact, I'm looking at a mountain range as we speak where you could find one if you worked really hard at it. George Gomez, mountain quail. Hey, George, I got some spots for you. I'll suggest a couple spots. Give me a ring or drop me a private message. I think we're in the same area code. Joe Rundell, Sharpies, but it won't be this year. Well, like I said, don't put it off too long. Roughies for Lynn Glock. Spruce grouse again for Grant Goblish. Cool places in northern Minnesota. Yeah, I believe it. Although I thought they liked a little bit higher elevation than you guys have over there, but what do I know? Elevation versus longitude, maybe it doesn't matter. Lance Larson, my friend, yeah, good luck on this one. You know that country well enough to actually do a one-day Arizona quail slam. Gambles, Mearns, scaled. Hey, and if you can't do it there, I got a spot in New Mexico for you, my friend. Sage grouse for Aaron Goldridge. Just hoping. Yeah, and that's probably a good way to look at it. Good luck to you, Aaron, and everybody else who answered the social media question this week. Yeah, learn something every time. Thank you so much, everybody. That portion of the show is brought to you by landtrust.com. That's where you get outdoors without the crowds. It's a DIY option. You and your dogs have a safe, reserved, quality bird hunting experience. Yeah, it's your property for the day. Kind of like a VRBO. And yes, you can stay overnight in a lot of them. I have, and I can't wait to be back in Montana again. So start a free account at landtrust.com. And then scout around for some quality upland experiences. Yeah, and don't be put off. The price is right, especially when you consider how far you're going for that bucket list bird or that trip of a season or a trip of a lifetime. Learn more about how it all works at landtrust.com. Precision made, tight tolerances. Well, you hope your truck is built that way, but you also hope your choke tubes are built that way, and that's what TrueLockChokes.com can do for you. State-of-the-art CNC equipment, quality control program, second to none. They're made in the USA from U.S. steel. If you don't think those things are important, well, think about your shooting last season. How'd you like to add an extra bird or two every trip? Well, choke tubes are one simple way to do that. Learn more about why and why I'm a believer at TrueLockChokes.com. TruLock, TrueLockChokes.com. And speaking of this season, which is almost here, my goodness, you better start stocking up on all that other stuff. Just got myself a new Orvis hunting shirt at MidwayUSA.com. They got just about everything for shooting, hunting in the outdoors. A big camping department. And then, like I've said before, fishing as well. I'm laying in ammo for 4 states at least, including a lot of non-toxic. I'm going to be shooting in Southeast California in the winter this year. So I'm hoping to get, the right loads for the right birds, and they all have to be non-toxic down there. Whether you're looking for ammo, new shotgun, any kind of gear, wearing a pair of boots from there right now, Customer satisfaction is their number one goal. Learn more at midwayusa.com. Well, the last time we talked, we were in a motorhome in Oklahoma at the annual big field trial for the Club Épingle Breton. Jake Bartells is a trainer, a hunter, family man, and well, on top of all of that, he happens to train invitational NAVHDA dogs to great advantage once in a while. Jake, welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me back. My daughter and I, Brooke, have been enjoying your podcast as we've been traveling from training site to training site this summer.
Well, I'm glad you brought her up because she is part of the agenda for today as well. I remember we were just standing around chewing the fat, I think, all of us, and I looked at Brooke's left boot, and it had a little yellow stripe on it. And I asked her what it was for. Tell us why there's a yellow stripe on her left boot.
Well, so we put an orange piece of tape on her left boot because we train ourselves to always lead with our left foot when we're heeling a dog out from any situation. And it gave her a little reminder when she walked up next to her dog, if she was going to heel out, and kind of as she was looking down at the dog, she would see that tape on her boot and she would know to leave with that left foot. When we want a dog to stay put, we step to the side with our right foot. And so it just acted as a little reminder for her to build up that muscle memory of always leading with the left foot.
Well, I love that idea. And yes, I'm colorblind, as you just figured out. But the other part of that I like is that if you want the dog to stay put, do not, under any circumstance, lead out with your left foot. That makes so much sense. I'm slapping my forehead. Wow. Well, she was a joy, and she's a part of your training team and more right now, isn't she?
She absolutely is. So she qualified a dog last year for the Invitational. I kind of scrambled to catch up with a dog I had acquired to do the same. That way we could go on this journey together. And there's not too many dads or parents out there that get to say that their 12-year-old daughter is probably their most valuable training partner. But I'm consistently handing my e-collar transmitter back to her and just relying on her for a set of knowledgeable eyes to see what I'm not seeing if I'm out there gunning in front of a dog or something like that.
I love that. And, you just don't hear enough of those kind of stories. So good luck to both of you. We'll get back to the Invitational in a few minutes. But before we do, all of this, and you're a perfect example of it, Jake, all of this is in large part so that we can be better hunters. Where are you going, and what do you love to do most with your dog when you're just out in the field hunting?
Oh, that's like asking me what my favorite kind of pie is. All of them. I like to have a slice of each every year is what I like to do.
Oh, God. Yeah, and you could do that. I don't have the willpower.
But I have grown to truly love my time out in the prairies, hunting sharp-tails and prairie chickens. But there's still something so exciting about a covey, a quail, desert or bobwhites going up. Really no different with the explosion of a rough grouse or the early morning wing beat of some ducks coming in. So it's really, I like to, that's what I love about versatile dogs is they're ready. They're game for whatever I'm game for that morning.
Yeah, and you just pointed it out, and that's exactly right. You get to a certain level in the NAVHDA testing system, and ducks become a factor. I mean, you're training for it for the tests. You may as well take advantage of it during the season, right?
Absolutely, and that's what got me into duck hunting, and coincidentally got most of the people I train within NAVHDA into duck hunting. Is we passed that natural ability test, and we started training towards utility, and we're like, man, our dogs really like this. And so we all went home and convinced our wives to let us buy a few $1,000s worth of duck hunting equipment, and off we were.
I asked earlier before you came on about everybody's bucket list bird for this season. Maybe not the one you want to, maybe not spur fowl in South Africa, but for this season, do you have one you want to tick off your list for this season that you've not done before?
There is probably not one that I haven't done before that I'm going to get a chance to. And that honestly says that I'm blessed, because I've gotten to do a lot of the ones in the United States already. And just with taking so much time off for the Invitational this year, I'm not going to get to do a real big destination outside of the country. But I'll tell you one that caught me by surprise really liking was blue grouse. Last year I went to Wyoming and we did some sage grouse, and I hate to say it, but that might have been a little underwhelming for me. I love the terrain, I love the hunt, but we got into birds and we went bang bang, and there were 2 birds down, and it was in the wide open, and it didn't seem difficult. And I had my 2 birds, and I'm like, well, what now? And so I hopped in the truck and started heading up elevation and got into some blue grouse hunting. Some roughs were mixed in, but just the scenery up in those mountains was something that have been imprinted into my mind, and I'm kind of longing to get back to do that again.
Yeah, it's kind of right up there for me as well. I don't think I'll be able to pull it off this year unless I do it on the way back from the Montana prairies, which I might try. But what are you doing? You're sitting there in sage grouse country, and you said, yeah, I want a blue grouse. You've probably done a little bit of study, but you're in new country. Do you just pull out the map? Do you talk to people, or have you already done that? How do you find a blue grouse spot just at the spur of the moment?
Well, the spur of the moment wasn't completely accurate, because we knew we'd be in an area where that was a possibility.
Yeah.
So we did do a little bit of research ahead of time. I'm a big OnX user, and it's great because they give you different foliage covers, different kinds of tree covers, and so you get into the aspens, and it's a place they generally like to be if you're at the right elevation. And I also had a friend there that had done it before, so he was at least alongside of me enough to go, you're looking in the wrong direction, buddy.
And just for our edification, what does classic blue grouse habitat look like?
Very, very similar to rough grouse habitat. You find these little pockets of good aspen cover. They love eating those buds. And every time, and I can't tell you what's typical because I haven't hunted them in more than one place. So I can only really speak of what it was like in kind of the, what are they called? The West.
Intermountain
something West Mountain Range right there.
Okay.
I'm blanking. But right up in there, it was just, you'd find these coves of aspen trees. And I'm telling you, every time you got to one of those big groups of aspen trees and you walked through it, you had a dog on point.
Wow. Well, it sounds like big fun. And someday it'll be on my short list as well. But this year it's Southeast California for me and some Gambel's quail.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've never been out there for that. So we'll trade notes.
How have the rainfall's been for it so far?
Well, it's a mixed bag so far, so we'll see. And I'm lucky enough to be flexible about where I go and when I go there. And so there's a lot of choices between here and there. So tell me, Invitational in a nutshell. By the way, everybody, if you want to know what the Invitational is all about, I did an episode from there on a TV show a while back. It's still up on my YouTube channel. Watch that. If you want to see the best dogs in the country doing their work, that's a great way to do it. But for you, Jake Bartells, and for your daughter too, what are the biggest challenges you face training for a grueling, comprehensive test of a bird dog's abilities?
Probably the 2 biggest challenges are keeping it fresh for your dog and interesting, The Invitational is a lot of obedience. There's a lot of high expectations on the dogs. And if you get into just this rhythm of constantly doing the same thing the same way, the dogs can get bored. And when they get bored, they come up with ways to entertain themselves, and they're never ones that work to your advantage.
I get it. Yeah, they'll be phoning it in or worse. But
right.
Keeping it fresh, I mean, what do you mean by that for, the guy like me who may have a limited amount of training grounds, for example? Are you talking about changing locations or what else?
Both. So that's the second fold, is getting to a lot of new locations. Everyone's heard the term like backyard champion or whatever. So if you're constantly training in the same places, dogs are very associative, and they'll learn what they can do in one spot and not. And especially dogs that have been hunted a lot, they know that during hunting season they're allowed to slip a little bit, or they've gotten away with slipping a little bit. And so you go from Pennsylvania to Iowa, the Invitational's out this year. The grasses are taller, everything smells different, and if their brain goes to, "Oh, it's hunting season, I can probably take a few liberties," that can bite you.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Just the changes, the physical changes. And that's even before you add in a gallery, too many judges, at least in my opinion, but and a couple 3 gunners, and not counting a TV crew.
Right.
Do you do anything on the day of a test to get your dog in the right frame of mind?
It really depends on the dog.
Yeah.
I have taken dogs to the Invitational, in which we have probably done nothing but conditioning for 10 days prior.
Yeah.
And there are dogs in which I have woken up early to do stuff day of the test.
Oh man. So we got to be able to read our dog and all of that a lot more than folks who don't do the testing thing. But that also holds true. I was just thinking about that. I'm going to write an article on this about the first things you do when the dog comes out of the truck on a hunt day. And maybe there's a warm-up routine or a drill or a regimen that people could use. You ever do anything while you're hunting to get your dog in the right frame of mind?
Well, what I will quick bounce to is one of the things I do in training are control the things in which I know I will always be able to control. And this was something actually taught to me by Clyde Vetter. I might mention his name a few times, but he's been a huge mentor of mine and greatly influenced how I train dogs now.
Yeah, he has.
So, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this guy, you talk about invitational champions and incredible breeders, even if they are short hairs. But Clyde and Sharpshooter's Kennel is the name of his correct. Operation. And this guy knows his stuff inside and out.
Yeah, anyway. I think his kennel has produced meaning himself and the trainers that worked for him have had well over 50 versatile champions.
Wow. Incredible.
But to get back to it, so the things I can control, which is healing, how I walk in and out, how I handle birds, when and how I water my dogs, everything that every single time it happens, I will have control over how it happens.
Yeah.
I'm very regimented about. That way the dogs are regrounded, they refocus in those moments because it's a little bit of a reset button.
Yeah.
The things that I can never control, the number of birds, how well behaved the brace mate is, when and how many birds come out, and if and when and how many get shot. Those are the things that I continually switch up so they can never predict what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, eventually I think a lot of us get to the point where we're looking at those situations more analytically, but you've just jump-started the thing for a lot of people, no doubt about it. When I first approached you on this interview, I said the high priorities among many of us and most listeners are steadiness and retrieving, anything we can help people with in that regard. For the rest of this segment, I'd like to talk about steadiness. Okay. I talked about it before we got together. I'm working on that on particular on walking around birds with my dog. But if you're going to approach steadiness and you've got basically a young dog, where do you start? And let's go to school on this from puppyhood on up.
Okay, so with puppyhood, I'm first building drive. So I want the bird to be the highest value thing that the dog has in its life, maybe other than myself and praise, but right there alongside. So I'm building up that prey drive and that desire to have the bird, and this will even go hand in hand a little bit with the retrieve. Is I'm okay with a little possessiveness. When I have a 8 or 10 week old puppy, I'll play tug of war with a bird with them. Not gonna let it rip it to shreds and things like that, but I want it in its mouth more than it wants me to have it right off the gate, because I look at this like building the emotional bank account in a dog's mind. If I get enough deposits, then when I start to make some withdrawals and put some restraints around game, they don't go, never mind, this isn't worth it anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a dog that's going out, and we're building search through having lots of game in the field. And once it's pointing and holding game long enough for me to get in gun range for, I'm shooting birds for it. And I'm probably shooting 50 to 100 before I would even consider starting steadiness.
Wow. That is remarkable and expensive. But
well, and for your listeners that live in New Jersey, they probably might as well shut the podcast off now, because you're going to find out I use a lot of pigeons and kill pigeons, and unfortunately New Jersey is not allowed to do that. Yeah,
well, if you're dedicated, you're probably moving from New Jersey anyway.
Right.
When you've shot 50 birds over a young dog, expecting nothing except bird drive out of that young dog, what's the end result at that point in time?
Well, I'm expecting point, right? They have to point and hold their point until I'm within gun range.
Sure.
And I will work that into getting me up pretty close to flushing the birds. I do use a lot of traps, so if they're moving or they're going to be greedy, that bird's going to go, and it's going to go out, and I'm going to go, what'd you do? And we're going to move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But initially, I'm trying to build up that if they point and hold their point, they're going to get a bird.
And holding their point at that age is basically until what? Till the bird flies? You're not expecting much more than that, are you?
Correct. Yeah, until the bird flies.
Okay. All right. So we got a young dog that's very birdy, has had a lot of shots over him, so we covered that as well. What's next on the agenda when you're ready to start truly working on steadiness with a dog that has that experience under their collar? How do you introduce whatever you use, a check cord or e-collar or whatever else?
Well, and this is kind of one of the really neat, beautiful things is when I started doing steadiness, the first dogs I steadied, I would get the training table out. I would start to teach them well with a pinch collar. Then I would go to overlay with the e-collar. Then I would do well with distractions. Then I would do well with game. Then I would have them woed while I'm throwing birds. Then teach them to stop to a thrown bird or a thrown dummy. Then stop to the shot and stay through all that stuff. The really neat thing about this system that I learned from Clyde is that from the time we just talked about where I have that puppy to having a dog steady through shot, we will do in a single day in the field.
Yeah. Okay, you can't leave it at that.
So we do it through reduced chase. And so we're going to, from the day we had that puppy, with it's searching hard, holding its point, we're going out there, we're shooting birds. We're going to say, well, tomorrow let's steady this dog to shot, which is as far as I take them until I've built my duck search. So I only steady them until the shot, until I've built my duck search. But the way we do that is dog goes on point, we flush the bird. Inevitably, the dog is going to start going after it because that's what it's been allowed to do. The initial time, we're going to wait until the dog starts. These are all good flying pigeons. So they get up and they go.
Yeah.
And so the dog's going to chase, and right about the point that it gets to realizing it's not going to catch the bird, I'm going to start nicking it with the e-collar with a no.
Okay.
Once the dog's, and so it's going to start to feel that stimulation and being told no, which is a negative command I've used from the time the puppy was 8 weeks old.
Sure.
And all that means is I don't want you to do what you're currently doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it usually comes with some sort of negative reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll quickly stop chasing. At the moment they stop chase, I call them back to me. So, which I'm going to be standing right where they pointed. So I call them back to me, and they come all the way back and they stop. And the second their feet stop moving, I praise them. I say, good dog. And I toss another pigeon. Inevitably, they're going to take off after it again.
Okay.
This time I'm going to start my nose a little bit sooner into that chase.
Okay.
With the e-collar pressure. Again, when they stop, I'm going to call them back to me. The second their feet aren't moving, I praise, I throw another bird. And I'm going to sooner and sooner start my nose and stop forward momentum. Once forward momentum stops, I call them back to that same place in which they originally pointed. Again, their feet stop, praise them. Usually most dogs within 6 to 10 birds will no longer try and chase.
What do you think they're getting?
At that point, I'll throw one or two where they haven't chased, and I'll shoot one.
Okay.
And usually that is enough stimulant that they go.
Wow.
And so we do that all without moving from the original spot of the original point.
So the point happens once, and then after that, it's basically obedience.
Correct. So we have a single point.
Yeah.
But because it's being done with birds and never with a whoa command, which is an obedient command, I'm using the dog's inherent selfishness, the dog's desire to have that bird, and I'm just controlling that in an environment in which I'm going to tell it how it can now obtain it. There's a new way to obtain that bird, and it's going to be through not moving. And so I have found that you have a tremendous amount of intensity in dogs. They'll come back after you do this drill a few times. Once they stop their chase, you almost don't have to say come. They run back and they repoint that location, because to them, there's infinite birds at these locations now. There's always another one.
I am.
And so they are keep your very high level of intensity, which is something that you traditionally haven't seen in other methods. It's one of the reasons, if you note in the NAVHDA system, at an NA level, you're required to have a 4 in search to get a prize 1.
Yeah.
In utility level, you're actually only required to get a 3 in search to get a prize 1. And that's because the founders, with the techniques we had at that time, knew that you were going to take some drive out of your dogs to get all the other things that are required at a utility test. But with this method, I just have not found that.
You know, I described again, before you came on the air, I described again a situation we were working on with birds walking around in front of my dog. And he crashed into them. He started at 1.5 feet away from them. I don't blame him for that. But after those birds flew, what did he do? He did exactly what you're training to do. He came right back to me. He even lifted up a foot.
Right.
And looked at me like, oh, gee, I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. Is that what you think they're doing to you when they get back?
Well, I think they've just realized that there's a way to obtain this, and that there's always another bird. And I've just found it to be so useful hunting, because so often when I spoke earlier about how I really just love prairie grouse hunting, and every time I do it, if my dog's lucky enough to pin them from far enough away, they're still going to start popping off a lot of times before I get within gun range. And so a dog that realizes that's not the only one, and there's no reason to go chasing that one because there's always more, is going to continue to stay where it's at until I can get up there and get that last dumb one that held long enough for me to get up there.
I love it. And you know, Clyde is not Clyde is an OG in my book, but there was a generation before him, whether it's Delmer Smith or anybody else, who used other tricks that basically taught the same thing. They'd put a bird in a hole, for example, or
Right.
two birds in two launchers. And so once one bird flies away and he doesn't get shot, the dog puts pardon the pun, two and two together and realizes, oh, yeah, there might be another one here too. I love it.
Right.
Well,
No, and what just seems to work really well is where the old way I did it would be to make a correction in that situation, and you didn't get that bird because you didn't handle it right, and then we'd move to the next location.
Yeah.
Because this all happens so quickly in one spot, the dog is able to learn and make this new association much quicker. When I said like we use like 6 to 8 birds at that first location, the second location, it's usually only 2 or 3. The third location, a lot of times they're holding already.
Yeah.
Till the shot, and then we'll do a few more. And I have been amazed at how when I get my dog out the next day or the next weekend, they pick right up where they had left off.
I'm not surprised. And again, I'm just amazed that more people aren't thinking along the lines of that. The teachers who taught me to teach used a similar approach in the music world. I was a musician. And so you learn the hard part and you learn it the way you're describing. You do it over and over and over again. And eventually it just becomes, there's almost a muscle memory to all of that. I'm loving what I'm hearing. We got to take a quick break. That'll give you all time to pay attention to the commercials, but ponder what Jake has just taught us at the same time. And after our second session with Jake Bartells, we will also take a look at one of the critical pieces of gear that I think you can make at home. Make it at home for dog training. So, Jake, you got a moment to rest. The rest of you, let me recommend espamerica.com. If you want to hit more targets and save your hearing at the same time, it's all about custom fit digital hearing protection. Custom fit. I bring that up because it'll be comfortable enough for you to wear all day in the field and at the range. That's critical. In the field in particular, but even at the range, you are generally bothered by a couple things. First is you're afraid they're going to fall out and you're going to lose them. Well, custom fitting obviates that problem. The other thing is you want to be able to hear everything else. Except wind. You don't want wind noise. And that's another thing that ESP has mastered. They've got proprietary software that minimizes it. And then they put the microphone on each of your custom hearing devices in the right spot in your ear to block what little wind might get through. Learn more about the technology and your choices at espamerica.com. And next time you're at the range, well, the next time I'm at the range, it's going to be Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. They hunt so they know what works on the range or in the field. And about this time of year, you're probably getting permission to buy your new shotgun. Before you go further than that, before you pull the trigger, so to speak, call Dave Fiedler at midvalleyclays.com. Dave will counsel you on what you really need in your new hunting gun. This guy knows guns, he knows hunting, and he has a line on hard-to-find shotguns. He'll ship anywhere, make it convenient for you, just like everybody else. He can do it too, but he's got the counsel for you. MidValleyClays.com is where you start your shotgun search. And once you buy it, take good care of it with Sage and Breaker gun cleaning and care products crafted at the highest caliber. New handgun cleaning mats in stock, lifetime warranty on all their gear, and the best photographs on Facebook. Yeah, take a look for yourself. Sage and Breaker makes high-quality gun cleaning products and accessories for you and you and you. Yeah, and if you have a rifle or a handgun, like I said, they can take care of those as well. Learn more at sageandbreaker.com. Jake Bartells rejoins us here at the Upland Nation podcast. Jake, welcome back.
Thank you.
I couldn't because I had to talk, but I hope people are digesting what you just said. It is a way different approach to learning or teaching, both, I guess, especially that steadiness thing. Now, when you started that talk, you said that I teach steadiness to shot and then put it on the shelf till the duck search is complete. Now, if you're not a NAVHDA person, the duck search is basically they'll hide a live duck out in the reeds in a really tangly, ugly piece of water, and the dog is told, hey, there's a duck out there, go find it, bring it back to me. So what's the criticality in that, Jake? Why do you wait until that's mastered?
Well, so it's kind of, I want to build momentum with the shot. I want the shot at that point to mean something just got shot. And even if I didn't see it, I want to get out there and start trying to figure it out. So the way not to get fully into duck searches, but well, I'm going to go back to a second ago or back to where about 10 years ago, I looked at my own handler record and started evaluating what my strengths and weaknesses were as a trainer. And I could always have steady dogs. And that was when I did steadiness the first way I described, but I always struggled with duck search. And I always had my steadiness done before duck search. And so when I had met Clyde and saw this new method, I said to myself, well, geez, that seems like it's really going to help cover up my weaknesses as a trainer. So I will start to not steady my dogs, get more drive in the water before I worry about coming back and finishing steady. So the process he created, and that was one of the things that Clyde has just been phenomenal at, is never looking at these, I even say not just the natural ability test or the utility test or the invitational, but I say whelping box to VC, he has a system. And each thing he has made as fluid as possible for the dog to understand how to get from the whelping box to become a versatile champion with the least amount of input and time you have to put into a dog to get that high level results. And this created a really fluid training and understanding for the dog. When the shot means go, something just fell, I should look for it. Then when I get out there with duck searches and I fire a shot, there is no hesitation. There is no, I got to wait to be sent. There is no focus on the fact that there wasn't even a mark. There's just the focus on getting out there and trying to search likely cover for a wounded game.
I just got to say it because I want it to be inculcated in my own weak brain. So the shot is, pardon the pun, the trigger in both cases. It's already part of the dry land work. You've transferred it over to the shore side, and I get it. Boom, the light bulb has gone off over my head.
Yeah, and then to finish your steadiness, which, for example, Brooke and I both last year didn't steady our dogs completely until maybe a week or two before the test.
Wow.
Which once we finally had our duck search, we went back into the field, and now we're doing the exact same process we just did to steady that dog 2-shot. So now I go up there, I throw a bird, I let it fly, I fire a shot at it, but purposely miss it. Not everybody has to purposely miss it. Some of them can do it on their own.
You seen my TV show?
but you purposely miss it, and what's the dog going to do? It's going to take off at the shot because that's what it's been allowed to do. Doing the same thing. No, call it back, or no until it stops forward momentum, come back to the point that it pointed, and I throw another one. And again, it's going to break at the shot, very quickly, because of how you laid your foundation to stop them until the shot, they just don't challenge it.
I get it.
Then you shoot a bird. that's usually enough stimulant to get them to break again. So you're going to just do the same process. No, call them. That's usually the hardest one to get them to not do when they see that bird fold up, is to get them to retract back that first time. But then you're throwing and shooting, and same thing. If they move forward, it's no, come, let them reestablish, and you throw another one. After we shoot 2 or 3 that they're able to stand there for, we're now going to start retrieving all those birds.
You know, and as the dog's advocate and all of that, the thing I'm thinking is, check me on this, Jake, the dog then makes a distinction between dry land and at the shore.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm at the shore now. For this test, at least, I know that when it goes boom, I can go. But when I'm on dry land, I better wait until I'm commanded to go. You think that happens?
Technically, at the duck search, they're supposed to be steady through that shot.
Okay.
But what you've did is you've built up enough muscle memory. So
yeah.
At the end of our duck searches, we're putting discipline back into it.
Yeah.
But initially, I'm using that shot and that go to help them build independence, to help them realize that they can get distance away from me and do an independent search, and then finding lots of ducks. You know, both Clyde and I use a lot of birds in training, but we can do it in about half the amount of time as people that want to use less birds more often. So we use more birds less often.
Easier said than done for some people. I'm knocking wood.
100%.
I'm looking at my pigeon loft right now. I'm grateful to have it. Had to clean it last night, but you know that problem. Yep. Well, that leads naturally into the next topic, which is retrieving in general. And yes, versatile dogs will retrieve on water and land. For the most part, most of us, most of the time, are retrieving on dry land. So let's start with that. We've done all this on the steadiness side. Are you working parallel to that on retrieving, or is that a part of this? Or, granted, it is obviously at one point, but do you do anything separate from what we've just talked about to inculcate the kind of the retrieving side of things?
So if we're going to go back to the young puppy, I'm going to encourage as much natural retrieve as I can. I'm going to help try and close that, get them to bring it all the way back to me by doing things like walking away if they're disinterested, and have them think, oh, I want to take this prize to my owner. Encouraging possessiveness at that point, which is, like I said, we'll do a little bit of tug of war when they're little. And then, because that's just kind of the idea of them wanting to keep something in their mouth and not give it up. And then I work on getting them to come back to me. But it's not until once I've kind of run my NA test, and sometimes I've run steady force fetch dogs in the NA just because it's the timing of when they were born and I couldn't get them in late enough in the fall, and by spring we're force fetched and steady. But when I force fetch or train retrieve, whichever term you want to use, I take them out of the field for that period of time, and we're working primarily healing and retrieving until that's complete and ready to go back to the field.
So you literally stop all the other aspects of training so you can work on retrieving.
Yep, and I like to do it after the last day of hunting season is usually when I start. Generally for me, it's anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the dog. I've had them go quicker and I've had them go slower. and so and you use the term, and I'll use this related term, condition retrieve, whatever you want to call it. You up on the table for some of that, or beyond that, or what are the starting points for a young dog in that world? So the starting points are, I start with hold and carry, and I'm going to start with just what I call a juke or a bumper that's very simple.
Yeah.
It's accepting to have it in their mouth. And the one thing that I've changed a bit over the years is I'm instantly moving now. I don't do anything where they're just standing on the table and accepting something. From the moment I open their mouth and roll it in, and I clear their lips, we're walking.
Yeah. And what is, I think I get it, but you tell us why does that help?
I think a dog in motion doesn't overthink things. So as a matter of fact, I will often say a lot of times you'll see a young dog that every time they come down off the ramp or something, they'll drop it.
Yeah.
And if I have a spot in which where I'm doing this, a dog is getting hung up, I'll do something as simple as take a Rubbermaid lid off of like a storage tote and I'll stick it on the ground there. And the next time I bring the dog around, when it sees that and it's more worried about how it's going to navigate that, it forgets to drop the bumper.
That is so true. You have told us once again that dogs think in a line. And sometimes that's good. Most times we need to break that up once in a while, don't we?
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's for trained retriever, conditioned retriever. You're using the most accurate term. I've just unfortunately gotten the habit of calling it force fetch.
Yeah, it's shorthand. Yeah.
Yep. But it's a big mind game. All these dogs are capable of it. I've seen these big, tough, 80-pound short hairs that act like I put a 4-pound weight in their head and it just slowly goes all the way down to the table like I've put 100 pounds in it. It's all just a mental game you're playing with. I actually have a series of bumpers that I've made out of PVC that look identical. Each one's a different weight. I can start with that lightest one and quickly go all the way through to the heaviest one, and they'll gladly pick it up because they know they can do that one. They didn't even notice the weight change.
I love it.
I also have a set of workout dummies that are all different colors and sizes that correspond with those weights. I can have them doing way heavier in the ones that they just have confidence because it looks like the light ones than the heavier ones that look like they're heavy.
That is so funny. This is the one time a trainer is smarter than the dog. So the key to all of this, of course, and there are a lot of ways to do it, but how do you get your dog to open their mouth to accept that bumper?
I use a lip pinch.
Okay.
And it's also where I start to transition just pressure to accept and then pressure to want to build momentum towards something. So during hold and carry, I always tell everybody I'm looking for the battle, right? I'm trying to find the objects in which this dog's going to say, I don't even want to carry this.
Yeah.
You have to enjoy that part of it. The conditioned retrieve is actually a beautiful system. Most people don't enjoy doing it because it's stressful for them because they see their dog slightly stressed at times.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those go hand in hand is what most people don't realize. If you're stressed and worried about that training situation, your dog's going to read off that completely. And I've learned to really kind of enjoy it because of the beautiful relationship it builds with the dog. And a challenge to challenge them, let them feel like they can fail, and then show them, nope, you got this. Like, we got this together. And when you finally complete that, you just have such a beautiful relationship. But back to the lip pinch so initially I'm just a tiny bit of pressure, enough that they open their mouth, and I'm rolling the bumper in.
Yeah.
As I get into harder and harder objects and they drop one, I'm immediately saying no when they drop it, because no is just my one is everything command for I don't like what you just did.
Yeah.
And the first thing I'm doing is reaching down and grabbing and pinching the lips. Then I'm going to grab the bumper. I get the bumper gathered up back in their mouth. As this progresses, I use an increasing amount of lip pinch, and I will also, while I'm pinching, actually start to pull the dog over to where the bumper is rather than me bringing the bumper back to the dog.
Sure.
And that's going to start to be, and I'll pinch a little bit harder as they're far away, and as they build momentum towards the bumper or start to come towards it, I might release a little bit, because all I'm doing is teaching them that momentum towards the bumper is going to release some of the pressure. Which is going to go right into then I ear pinch and E fetch, and it's all the same thing.
For those of us who haven't done it that way, you say lip pinch. Where's your left hand? Where's your right hand? Where's the bumper when you start that process?
Oh, okay. So I'm taking my thumb and then my forefinger and middle finger, and I'm coming over the top of their muzzle.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take their top lip and I'm going to pinch it up against, it's kind of like your 4 or your 1 and 205s. So right behind your canines, I'm not pinching on the canine.
You're talking like a judge now.
or even the molars a little bit farther back. But if you just think you're pinching behind the canines,
right
so
on.
farther back in the mouth than the canines.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they open, I'm rolling the bumper in, or I'm sticking the bumper in. And the most important part of this is that you then clear their lips so that as they hold securely on the bumper, they're not pinching their own lip.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, most dogs, it doesn't take much to do that, does it?
No.
Yeah.
Actually, really quickly, most dogs will pick up, hold, and carry. And, you know, depending on the dog, lots of praise when they're doing it right. Some dogs you can praise too much, and the praise actually makes them come unglued and fail. So those you have to be a little more calming with your praise, and that can be the difference between "what a good dog, you're doing fantastic" to "nice job, that's a good job, good girl." You know.
I love it. All right, take me to the next step. The dog is probably still on a table, and he's moving the length of the table to pick up that bumper. How do you get him back to you?
So I might take a step back here because I feel like we skipped a step. So from the hold and carry, I am on and off the table with objects, off the side of the table, up everywhere. I mean, I'll have one bumper for a long time, all around different things. That's kind of when I'm doing the lip pinch. From there, I'm going to go to when I actually get to the reach and grasp, you need to go forward to grab the bumper. I'm switching to an ear pinch.
Okay.
And that is, I'm just going to have my hand in the collar. I'm going to grab the ear through the collar, and I just use my thumb and forefinger. If you think of those two nails at about a 90-degree angle, and I just wiggle them a little bit between the ear just to engage some nerves.
Boy, that's a great way to describe it, by the way, engage the nerves. I like that a lot more than some of the other ways that we can describe that. And you obviously you're overlaying one to the other, and then he'll figure it out and he'll go out. Do you need to call him back after that?
No. So at that point, I'm still using about an 18-inch long leash.
Yeah.
Until I have them, because I want to get to the point where I'm actually slightly holding them back and I'm teasing them with the bumper, which means we're moving down the table where the bumper in front of them is moving a little bit slower than they are. So they have to drive to catch up to it. It keeps, it's almost a carrot on a stick. And they have to push that extra urgency into it to actually grab it. And that's where we get these really hard driving dogs for the retrieves.
We don't have time to go much deeper into this, but in a nutshell, what are you doing for the rest of that dog's retrieving training? And I know we can't touch on all the deep details, but where do you go from there, the next few steps?
So my next few steps are then to overlay the e-collar with that ear pinch so that I can start getting more distance away. So that they can go farther away from me to make their retrieves. And a lot of this, I'm building mental toughness into them. I want them to be able to think through pressure. So we're going to do that. We're going to hop off the table. I go to what's called I call a walking fetch, which is I have bumpers scattered around. As they make, I'm on a 6-foot leash with e-collar already overlaid. And every time they kind of see a bumper, I'm just saying fetch with a little bit of stim, and they're going to go grab that. I bring them back to a swing the heel position and take it. 'Cause like I had said, I'm working simultaneously with my heeling. From there, I'm going into a V rope, which I'm going to leave that topic for you when you get to have Clyde on, because he was the developer of the V rope, and it is a tremendous tool for retrieving.
I'm intrigued.
I think him going over that and taking that into lining drills would be better from the horse's mouth than me secondhand.
Love it. Can't wait. I'm looking forward to that. Clyde, if you're listening, you owe me a phone call. Fascinating, educational, useful. If you were going to sum up all of the things we've talked about today and give us one bit of advice about maintaining our own sanity and the bond between us and the dog, can you boil it down to a couple bits of philosophical advice?
I think the piece of advice that I give the most often anymore is understanding that your anxiety transitions into the dog.
Yeah.
The more you can be calm, a calm, controlled leader, not emotional, and you can enjoy the process, truly enjoy the challenges your dog gives you. Don't get frustrated by the challenges. Enjoy them, teach them how to be successful, and then you can hold them accountable. I think that's the process in which people are too quick to want to see their dogs be successful, so they cover up their weaknesses. I'll see people take that half a step forward so it looks like the dog's in the right healing location. Well, you should have brought the dog back to you, right? The dog should come back to you, and then the dog would know where to properly be. I think dogs are capable, and this is something Clyde made me realize, is dogs and handlers are capable of so much more than I think what we do with them if the expectations are clear. Dogs love to work. They love to make us happy. They just need perfectly clear expectations.
Amen to that. I can't put a capper on that. You've summed it up, Jake Bartells. I can't wait to go deeper into this at some point with you. You've just opened a lot of pairs of eyes around here. Always a pleasure.
Well, look, I can talk about this for days and days and days. I love it. I eat, sleep, and drink it. I think about it. I talk to everybody about it. So don't ever hesitate. I love doing it, and I love what you're doing with the podcast. So I hope your listeners learn something from it.
Oh, they will. And there he is, the only guy that might put more miles on his truck in a season than I do, Jake Bartells. Hey, man, we'll do this again soon. In the meanwhile, good luck to both of you on the Invitational. I'll be watching with interest, and we'll talk again, let's say middle of hunting season. That might be fun, too. Thanks so much for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you, Scott.
Oh, man, I don't know about you, but it's going to take a couple days for me to digest all of that and then go over it again, re-listen. I guess that's the joy of podcast, isn't it? You can listen over and over again, and this one is definitely worthy of that. We've still got more to talk about here, something not quite so heavy, a piece of gear that you can make yourself for training your dog in many, many places. Right after a word from Pointer Shotguns. Yeah, shop for your new shotgun at pointershotguns.com. Now, you need to find a dealer, but they have a dealer list there as well. So go to pointershotguns.com, start looking at all the choices. And remember, it's only about 119 days to the Kansas Pheasant and Quail opener. It's only 41 days to the Montana Sharptail season opener. So get on your new shotgun search right now. Start it at pointershotguns.com. And I'm sure everybody agrees that a healthy, conditioned, well-nourished dog is the key to a long and productive hunting season, training season, all year for that matter. Pro Plan Sport Dog Food by Purina is one way to achieve that. It's designed for active, hardworking dogs. There's a reason only one brand fuels the most sporting dog champions. Amino acids from meat as the first ingredient, Amino acids nourish muscles and help them recover quickly. The ratio of 30% protein to 20% fat is the right fuel for metabolic needs and to maintain lean muscle. Maybe I should be eating that. Anyway, learn more about what they do and why they do it. They got more nutritional information at ProPlansport.com than anybody. Go there, learn, feed. Well, this week on the Handle It segment, got a couple questions from folks about this issue. I was suggesting a few things a while back that you could make for yourself for dog training. Maybe I'll do one on hunting too. That will be fun. But anyway, one of the things I talked about is check cords. And I got some very firm beliefs about check cords. The first thing I believe is that most of them are too limp. And what happens with a limp check cord? Dog does a half circle or more, and he wraps it around that bush or that tree trunk or that boulder. And then he's hung up. So you want a material that will not be that limp. You also want it to be lightweight because, especially with a young dog, but all dogs, they're just going to get bogged down, and that's not part of it. That will change their style. That will change their gait. It will do all sorts of funny things. So you want it lightweight. You want it stiff enough where it won't tangle. You can buy those and go ahead, or you can just go down to the local marine supply store or even a big box sporting goods retailer and buy a length of water ski rope. Yeah, most of them will sell it in bulk. You might have to ask around. You might have to go on the internet to do it, but you can buy some water ski rope. Hey, if it'll pull a human being on skis, it's strong enough for you and your dog. And it's lightweight. In fact, most water ski ropes will float. That's the kind of material they're made out of. Yeah, get yourself a good long piece of that. You can shorten it up as your dog progresses, or you can cut it into several pieces for different dogs at different times. Water ski rope. Buy yourself a snap swivel. Tie that one on with a bowline knot. If you don't know how to tie a bowline knot, go back and join the Boy Scouts again. And then at the other end, don't put a knot because the knot will get hung up on something once in a while too. Just burn it off so that it's nice and smooth. It won't fray. You've got yourself a check cord that is lightweight and stiff. Water ski rope. Yeah. Handle It this week brought to you by HiVizSites.com, HIVIZ sites.com. Really stoked about how they are helping my shooting. And it's not because I'm aiming with the sight. It's because the sight shows me where the muzzle is in my subconscious while I'm looking at the target. Yeah. It's working on crossers. It's working on going aways. It's working on low shots. All the things that I'm going to hit or try to hit in the field. High-vis sights and their patented light pipe technology. You can easily see, and I put air quotes around see the muzzle without actually looking at it. And that is the key to hitting a flying target. Learn more at HiVizSites.com. Well, Jake, I cannot thank you enough for your help today. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Good luck at the Invitational for both you and Brooke. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And all of those who contribute to our discussion at the social media, great ideas, motivation, and inspiration there as well. Thank you to our sponsors, Sage and Breaker, Purina Pro Plan Sport, ESP America, Mid-Valley Clays, Trulock Chokes, Midway USA, LandTrust.com, Pointer Shotguns, and High-Vis Shooting Systems. If you want more information on any of this, there's always something of value, I hope you agree, at findbirdhuntingspots.com. Until next week, thank you again for listening. I'm Scott Linden. This has been the Upland Nation Podcast.